All right. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to let some people jump on here. Yes, all these otters. Oh my God, it's like really builds up. Hi, how are you? Really builds up the whole screen. All right. Is there a way to just say all allow? Sure, allow. Okay, great. All right, good to see everybody. I'm excited. I haven't seen you for a mastermind in now 2 weeks. How did it go last week with David? Do you guys have a good meeting? Are you kind of liking the style of the way that we're doing things? Yes, no, maybe so.
This is the first time I'm dropping by this one.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Good, good, good. All right, so I'm gonna jump right into it because like I always say, I kind of like to, and we say at Compass, learn from reality. My job on these calls is not to coach. So everybody feel free to yell at me in the comments or just unmute yourself. Be like, Kate, no coaching here for a mastermind. But I did have a really interesting scenario that I thought was actually kind of interesting that Shrag yesterday was just going over the basics of leveraging Compass technology. So I was hoping I could maybe share my experience and then hopefully that sparked some ideas for everybody else. Was kind of a reminder to me, again, because I'm so in this and I know the tech, I'd like to say pretty well. I still, I think, forget when I go into listing presentations that, especially for us in Westchester, New York, which is where I'm located, Compass really does have like the majority market share. So most of the time if I'm pitching against other great agents, they're likely going to be Compass agents as well. So it's really interesting to see how different our pitch can be. And for instance, yesterday I went into a listing presentation. I was the only one who brought up private exclusives. And I think I was the second agent, but they had called somebody else. So I'll give them the chance that maybe they didn't get to go through their whole pitch. And I was really interested because I thought the exact scenario that they were kind of presenting to me and kind of the battles that we had, private exclusive would have been a really great thing to solve for. So I had priced the property. My recommendation was going to be pricing it around like 165 in hopes of getting multiple bids. That's kind of the style that we like to do, not go way under. Definitely not ask for exactly what they're hoping to get because there's a risk to that. So really kind of coming up with a creative way with that. Immediately, classic thing, absolutely not. So low. What are you thinking about? It is nice, but kind of basically what he was saying, no less than 1.8. So went through all the comps. I had the comps in the collection for him, which if any of you have ever taken my calls, you know I love to do it that way. Also had a CMA to leave behind for him. And he actually ended up kind of realizing, yeah, okay, we probably should be somewhere around the 1.7 mark if we want to even have a chance of getting there. So I did get him around to that, but then I had come up with an idea. I said, listen, I know you said you'd interviewed another Compass agent. I don't know if you've already been, shared with private exclusives, this kind of off-market opportunity that we have here. But I think this could actually be a really great way where without putting this price out that you maybe want to test out to the market, and then in 2-3 weeks having to cut that down, which is just really never going to look great, especially in this area. And especially with the days on market that are typically in this subdivision that they live in. Why don't we try this private exclusive? Kind of a hidden price. I'll still curate the best of brokers to come in and take a look. I don't need to pitch this to you guys. You know my whole thing. But it was really interesting to me. He was like, okay, 100% yes. He's like, I basically risk-free get to test out my price. Absolutely. And I also said, you might get it. We've all been wrong before in this market, even if no one wants to admit it on this call. I'm going to admit it for all of us. Some crazy prices have been reached sometimes. And maybe ours was a little bit low even going into that. So I thought that was a really interesting thing that I wanted to bring up, that we do make this assumption that if we're competing against other Compass agents, everybody's bringing the same thing to the table. But I don't think that all of us necessarily take the time, especially with the amount of tools that Compass rolls out and the amount of new tech, to really make sure that we understand how to leverage all of these as much as we possibly can. So I wanted to kind of open up the floor to that. So feel free, if we want to talk about a specific tool, we could talk about private exclusives. If we want to talk about a specific tool for sellers or for buyers, or a tool that, I personally think a lot of our tools can help out both types of clients. So just one experience that I had, but I kind of wanted to open it up for you guys if you had any comments from the calls. Yeah, Martha.
Sorry, I was actually not going to talk today, but
Me too, but look at how that's going.
But I have to share with you, I had exactly the same experience last week.
Interesting. Okay.
I had a seller ask me for a market analysis, which I gave him. He interviewed at least 2 other agents. My price was, probably like mid-8s, somewhere
Mhm.
around there, mid to high 8s. The other agents came in 200,000 over what I was. So
Wow.
huge difference. And he went with me. And I said to him afterwards, I talked to him about the private exclusive. I said, well, we could set an aspirational price and see what happens, and then come
Mhm.
on as coming soon. And that way, as coming soon, everybody can see it, and then come on as active after the private exclusive. But when I asked him, I gave him a lot of credit, for going with me rather than somebody giving him 200,000 over. And he said, you know what? We looked at the data. I don't know how they came up with those prices. He said, but they were setting us up to fail. He said, I know that our house is not going to get 1.1 million, but he really liked the multi-tiered marketing approach as well. I will say that what I'm finding in our area are people are coming in with some private exclusives, and they're only marketing it once. In other words, they're sending around a flyer when it first comes on.
Mhm.
And they're not doing anything else after. I really feel that to be successful with the private exclusives, you have to do more than one flyer, because you need to market it to your Compass community so they know about it.
Yeah.
I think that's key.
I'm not going to talk because someone else has to talk. See, this is good. This is being very aware, self-aware. That's what this
Do you
is.
mean, so do you mean by flyer, what do you mean taking it to your offices? Like, I'm not really sure. You don't mean just a digital sending it out or putting it on Workplace? What exactly do you mean by that?
So what I've seen happen in our case is when it first comes on as private exclusive, they create a flyer in Marketing Center and then they email it to the offices. But they only do that once. And if you've got a private exclusive for, 2-3 weeks or however long, I think you need to do more than that. I'll admit to you, I'm not an agent that typically looks at private exclusives. I just don't. I'm in our MLS, multiple times a day, but I don't tend to look at private exclusives unless I'm looking specifically for something for somebody. So if you're only advertising it once when it first comes on as private exclusive, it's just not showing up for me. So I think you have to do it more often. At least that's my thought, and depending on how long you have it on.
Absolutely. Something just to, if anybody wants to take this recommendation back to their region, a few of our AEMs are, I mean, all of them are amazing, but a few of them have really taken on the role of weekly. They are sending out not only just the Westchester private exclusives, but the tri-state private exclusives. And that's been really helpful just to always like kind of fresh in my memory every week. A lot of the time it's kind of like the similar ones, or I've already gotten the email like you're saying from someone else. But that could be, if you don't already have that happening, maybe make that request as well, because it's easier if they're just taking them every week and kind of putting them to the top of your inbox. But absolutely. Has anybody else done a private exclusive or kind of created a great marketing plan in their head or in reality that they want to share?
I think the private exclusive is underutilized because the thing is, you can already start promoting the property the moment you sign the agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had wanted, she was not ready to sell yet, but she would sell at an aspirational price. So we got the whole thing ready and we ended up selling 100,000 over our aspirational price.
It's great.
And
that's the whole make me move price. Yeah.
Yeah. And her preference was to sell it off market. And the nice thing is it gives you a 3-tiered approach, right? So you have first private exclusive, then coming soon, and then going on the market.
Yeah. Christine and then Donna.
I was just gonna say I did set up a search for all the private exclusives in Chicagoland, and it's been great to see how many come on. I don't do a ton of work in the burbs. I'm more in the city, but people are really utilizing it a lot. So I highly recommend just setting a search. And then one thing Robert had in his email with all the clear cooperation stuff that I really liked. I always talk about not accruing days on market, but no public price drops. I always say we can test the market, but I think just no public price drops would really resonate with people a lot. So I'm going to use that one.
Yeah. And then Donna. Oh,
Good morning.
there you go. Yep.
I was also not going to talk this morning. The lady who said that her client was set up to fail, I think that is an excellent talking point when somebody says, but the other agent said they would list it at 150 or 200,000 over. I'm really glad you brought that up, Mr. Seller. I recently had a conversation with a client who selected me over someone else because they felt they were set up to fail. I'm curious, what specifically causes you to believe that they can actually list it at that price and get you where you want to go in the time you want, or something along those lines?
Yeah. Donna, go ahead. Or I can unmute you. Well, I don't think we can hear you. No one else can hear it, right? It's not just my thing. Sorry.
Donna, you might have to dial in with the audio if that's an option.
Donna, you should be fine now.
Yeah. Mm,
No.
no. Susan, do you want to go while Donna's working on that?
Sure. I was just going to talk about the private exclusives. We've had a private market here in Austin for probably 15, 20 years. Multi companies that's a member only situation. So private exclusives, I mean, I think we use them really well here. They're a really, really large part of our luxury market. And having Compass out there, our AMs or whoever they are,
Yeah.
they also send ours out weekly, all the new ones, and they keep them in front of everybody. But I don't know what we do in Austin without the private marketplace here.
So interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been at least 20 years since this has been, a situation.
Yeah, I think it's a huge, I mean, I've also had someone else the other week who said, we'll use our dad, who's an attorney, who has his broker's license for anything on market. That hasn't been going so well for them. So we'll see how that goes, as we all know. But if you can find me something off market, because I had found their friend something off market after years of looking, and they're like, we heard you're the off market queen. I'm like, well, I don't know about that, but it would be great. So it's very interesting. I think there is such an exclusivity to it, and really a nice way to get buyers out of the craziness that's happening sometimes. So really getting comfortable with it. If you're not comfortable with it, I always say there's no time like the present to just kind of run into it, and make sure you do understand, especially market to market, kind of what the rules are surrounding private exclusives. I know in Westchester, it's pretty tight. It's not the easiest thing to do, but not impossible either. So
it's not here either. And we Texas is a non-disclosure state. So a lot of the reason private exclusives are so popular is because the sales price is not disclosed anywhere. And so on a private exclusive, nobody has access to it unless you're actually a member.
Got it. Okay.
And we don't even publish those. And we're not considered, the way it's set up now, we had to change it. It's not considered an MLS listserv. So we kind of slowly skirting around those rules.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah.
I wanted to say, being in the business so many years, to me, I always thought it was more advantageous to put it on the open market and get the greatest amount of exposure. I've been pretty indoctrinated into that. So, I guess there's a way around that, but I'm trying to adapt to the exclusivity approach now. But
yeah,
just a comment.
I think that's a great way to do it.
Sorry,
if you're
Mike, go ahead.
correct. I mean, if you're positioned in a good spot and that that's going to be the right price point to list a property at, I think that's probably the play. But if they're 10% higher than they should be, it's going to sit on the market and just acquire days on market and look less and less enticing to the buyers out there. I think there's definitely a place for private exclusive in that situation.
Right. That helps. Yes.
Yeah, Jody, I saw you had a hand right before, a physical hand. There you go.
Hi. So I'm newer to Compass, but I work with a lot of seniors, and so this private exclusive, approach is working really well for me right now. I have one going on Thursday or tomorrow,
Mhm.
and he's an elderly gentleman. He's got a big art collection and doesn't want anybody in the house, basically, running through there. So, I think it's going to work really well, for my business, definitely with some of these seniors who just really want their privacy,
Yeah,
first and foremost. So they've liked
me
that
too.
kind of listing presentation with that option.
Yeah. Martha, do you have something to add as well?
I was just going to tag on to Joyce and then I guess Mike and Jody, because Joyce, I initially had a lot of those same feelings. I felt that it's always more advantageous for a seller to show the property to the widest possible audience because you don't know what you're going to get unless you show it to the most people available. But I think the reason I went with the private exclusive on this one is because it's a unique property that's going to take some work. The house itself is in good condition, but it's literally like somebody got up in the middle of the night and walked out of their life. I mean, everything is in the house. And they want me to, sell what I can sell, dispose of the rest or donate the rest. And my thought is, and they want it done as quickly as possible. So in this case, my thought was, I can probably get some of that accomplished, bring it on as private exclusive so that my Compass colleagues know that there's still some work that has to be done, but at least they're seeing the property and they kind of have first dibs at it. So I think that, to Mike's point, I think there's a unique opportunity for the right people to use it. I don't think it's.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, and my personal feeling, it's not the right vehicle for everybody. But I think that it is the right vehicle for certain situations.
Yeah, and just to tag onto that, because we have been doing it for so long here, we don't necessarily do it because it's a higher price point. It's more, there may be a high profile divorce, there may be a high profile client. There may be, somebody might have an illness they don't want somebody to know about. I mean, they're all extenuating. There can be extenuating circumstances where it doesn't need to be out there in the public, because it's the houses we usually put on there are definitely the top of the market here as far as the type of houses and the owners. And that's kind of where it started. It was like people didn't want someone to know their house was on the market because there was something going on in their life, or like maybe it's a high profile judge, or maybe it's there's a lot of different things, but ours aren't necessarily because they're trying the market at a super high price point to see what happens. It's more of a privacy thing, and that's been driven by our sellers.
Yeah. And I think just to tie it back into a little bit of what we talked about together 2 weeks ago too, this is all kind of why I think the Med-C is so important to have that kind of framework of conversation, because just one tool that we're talking about here of private exclusives, it could be used for so many different reasons. So being able to really understand where your clients are coming from at the beginning and what's important to them will really help you knowing kind of, well, what am I going to bring up out of, which tool am I using out of my tool belt in this conversation? And if it is going to be private exclusives, you don't have to even go into all the different reasons why private exclusives are great. You can just talk about the one specific part of private exclusive and how that's going to help them in that situation. And I know we're talking a lot about private exclusives. Obviously, there's so many other tools, but that all those things I think are really why that framework is so helpful in telling us basically this is what they want to hear from you. This is the cure almost that they want to hear about. Yes, Nomita, do you have a comment as well? There you go.
I think now we've heard it all. There are, of course, the very high-end properties that are over 5-6 million that go to private exclusives. And the other ones, which are, average price is about 3 million, they stay in that private exclusive just as long as the property is ready to show, staging has to be done, or that folks are traveling and they really want to not be gone for too long and have people going to the house, all that kind of stuff. And then in that case also, then we as realtors have to be present for the showings when there are private exclusive. They don't want us to use, the combo box at all and be responsible that way. Yeah. So, that, and then of course, it also helps us gauge how much activity there is, because people, agents are opening the private exclusive to see, what the home offers by way of price. And based on that activity, we can also share with our clients that, yeah, we're in the right price range, or we need to do a price improvement, or someone will say, oh my God, you priced it too low. So we get all that information, and that's helpful for sellers. Yeah.
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, just to take a brief detour, I guess, from private exclusives.
Yeah.
I found a couple of other tools, especially in like a recent listing I had where I was dealing with like 5 different seller personalities, some people more analytical than others, some a little bit more emotional, dealing with an inherited property. But the digital ads I find are, I mean, I ran an ad for this for maybe $300, and half of the views for the property in the first week came from those digital ads, which I was kind of surprised by. It was like something like over 3,000 views in the first week, and then 1,500 or so were from the ad campaign, which kind of boggled my mind a little bit. I kind of front loaded it. I didn't make it a super long ad campaign. I knew I wanted to try to get this to go in the first week, but being able to come back and use that insight report and put those numbers in front of the sellers is so powerful, I think. And I was going to mention one other tool, the agent network tool, I think is great too. Like whenever you want to roll it out in the listing process, generating that list of agents that are active in that market. I think for this transaction specifically, where I was dealing with basically a family friend, a little bit outside of our territory, a little bit closer to Martha's territory, actually, as it happened. And, one of the sellers wanted to use someone that's a little bit more familiar with Cape Cod or just over the bridge down the Cape. But, most of them are like, these guys are family almost, let's just use them. They know what they're doing. So having the agent network tool and be able to say, listen, we're going to put this directly in front of all of these high producing agents down the Cape anyway, whether it's, right before we go on the market or during the coming soon phase or right after we list. I mean, we're blasting this out to all of the producing agents down the Cape. I think being able to then add that insight to that first week of reporting and put all those numbers in front of the sellers so they know you're doing what you should be doing. You're getting eyeballs on the property. And again, it's up to them to really position the property in a way that leverages the marketing that you're doing.
Yeah. Anybody else want to chat about other tools that they use? We can keep it on the seller topic if you want to. Another thing I'll share if it sparks another idea. Same people as yesterday, because it's they're going to put it on in the spring. I put them in a collection, kind of added them into that same collection that I had already for the comps so that they can also monitor the market with me. Because there were a few things that they had pulled up just from Zillow and whatever, their website, and didn't even realize like how the square footage was being, I don't know, presented on that website. It's a very weird situation. So I just said, listen, let me add you into this collection. So I'll leave a comment every time a true comp comes on for the property so that you actually are getting good information. And I'm also kind of creating the narrative almost for them over the next 3 months instead of them coming up with some other one in their head. So I don't walk in January and they say, do you see that one? Now we're going on for 2 million. It's like, no, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. So also using the collection, even if they were ready to list right away, just to stay in touch with them there and make sure that you are kind of beating them to it instead of them saying, hey, Kate, did you see that one come on the market? You've likely already had a collection that's fed that into them and can leave a comment on there. Yeah, Andrea.
Going back to, Nomita just said something about putting it in for sellers. I have some senior sellers who are going to be working on their townhome or putting it on the market. Not sure where timing is going to come out. And this is new to me. I've not really dialed into all these Compass tools until I started taking this course, quite frankly. So thank you for that. I'm thinking that maybe, and I want to kick the tire, like get feedback from you all about it. I'm going on holiday the end of October. Is it feasible to put it in private exclusives, the listing in private exclusives for the period that I'm gone? And how would you position that to the seller?
You're gonna have to have somebody that's gonna cover that for you if somebody wants to see it, somebody you
Well,
really trust,
Yeah, it would be
and that
vacant.
the seller
On
trusts.
Supra.
Do you have some, like some associate who you team up with when you're going on vacations? And then maybe you have to give them an incentive, also, and that might help you because then you are tracking what's happening, or they will be tracking what's happening for you using their time. So that's helpful. Every time I go on vacations, and I do take a lot of vacations, I always have someone, and I tell my clients right up front, this person is on my team, and then I pay them. And if the listing goes into contract, then I pay them the 25% referral fee, and they manage it. So it's works that nicely that way. If you're a single agent, that's the best thing.
Thank you for that suggestion. I meant positioning it with the seller.
That too, I think would help, because it's even while I'm on vacation, we are working to get your property exposed, and we'll get a good idea how many people are looking at your property.
Yeah. And it has to be available for somebody to take a look at. I mean, you can't, I think if I
But
was a seller and you just said, I'm going to put it in private exclusive and I'll take a look at it when I get back, that kind of defeats the whole purpose, because you are trying to gauge all this, like Mita was saying, you're trying to gauge all the activity. So you need somebody that's going to be monitoring that.
Well, yes, that piece of the puzzle I'm aware of. I'm talking about communicating the benefit of it to the seller, the benefit of the private exclusive piece, vacation or not, my availability or not.
I think something to kind of consider here is like with any, and this is, I think also does go back to like what Shrug talks about a lot, is not just explaining these tools for the sake of saying we have these tools, but really leveraging them and incorporating them into a certain strategy. So if you are able to kind of communicate to your seller what the strategy is going to be, for me, just kind of playing devil's advocate again, let's just use the example of vacation. I think really the strategy of these private exclusives, yes, it could, as Nomita is saying, could be a nice way of saying, listen, I'm going on vacation, but I'm still going to be, working for your property or whatnot. I still think it might be better just to wait for a week where you're there, so you can really double down on what the strategy is of that, to say, listen, I was there for the showings. And being there and hearing that feedback, communicating, following up right away with the agent, saying, what do you think on the price? Any improvements you think I could make to it before we go on? Was your client interested? Whatnot. I think that's really what the strategy is that a lot of us are talking about here. So I think that might be something just to consider. But if it's a situation where your seller's saying, listen, this is really the week I want it to go on, and you have a conflicting, then maybe, yes, bringing in a colleague there and explaining that to the seller, if that's a concern of theirs, that it won't be marketed for that week or something, could be helpful.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Cool. Right at 12 o'clock, like clockwork. It's good. All right. Well, I didn't know this was only gonna be private exclusive, but I did think it's kind of interesting. And hopefully it's kind of sparked some ideas for all of us to brush up on it and get really comfortable with it. So it is something you want to pitch. When you're meeting with sellers or meeting with buyers, that's the whole point of being at this amazing company. So whether that be for private exclusives, collections, whatever it might be, whatever tool it is, get comfortable with it. You don't have to be perfect at it, but understand a few great things of each. So you do have a pretty full toolbox anytime you're meeting with a client. That's kind of how I built it up in my head, and I gave myself time to do that and kind of test it out. Cool. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. I might see you next week. I need to check with David, but I'll see you eventually, very soon. Good to see everybody. Email me if you have any questions. Talk to you.